Willits is our town. Always has been, and always will be. Like any other town, it changes just a little bit from time to time. So we're here to let you know some of the things that are going on in your town.
Okay, the next issue which I find pretty interesting, and one of the key reasons I stay involved in city affairs is the Caltrans freeway bypass project. The biggest, they say the biggest construction project in the North Coast probably in years when it is done. Our latest meeting with Caltrans, first just a little overview, our latest meetings with Caltrans suggest that they have a meeting with the CTC, which is the State Transportation Commission, in June to get their final funding agreements in place. They look to bidding the project in the fall or early winter and actually starting construction in the year 2011. So it is getting quite close, closer than it's ever been. I have obviously, having been born and raised in Willits and heard of the Willits Freeway project since the mid-50s or early 50s, there are those of my friends in town that still question whether this project's coming, and I'm still not willing to bet any money on it, of my own anyway, but it is apparently getting closer. Other judgments may be as good as mine, but it is moving forward. And unfortunately, it's not the project I would have liked to have seen built. I think it has some substantial deficiencies. I think without a Highway 20 interchange, it is kind of, it meets barely, if at all, meets the purpose and need of the Fed spending money on upgrading a highway system. I really felt that a Highway 20 interchange was absolutely imperative. There is no way Caltrans is going to give us that. And right now they're obviously talking about building a 2-lane project and expanding it out to 4-lane. They have acquired the right-of-way for a 4-lane project, and they plan on doing, I believe, most of the subgrade work, where the project is on fill soil, that soil will be put in place when the project is built. For those of you that aren't entirely clear, the project is coming up from the south, will be just east of Microfor, going east of the railroad tracks there. We'll be swinging back in towards town, right behind the senior housing complex, behind the senior center. It will be fairly close to the railroad tracks. Then it swings back out to the east and crosses Valley Road there right by Schuster's truck shop. It will actually go, at that point, it will go into what they call a viaduct. It will be an overhead structure, cement bridge from there all the way to basically where it crosses the railroad tracks, just at the north of the Quail Meadows campground. Goes right over the top of the sewer plant. I'm not real happy about that. I'm not sure what people are going to think of Willits after they drive over the top of our digester. But anyway, that's where it's going to go. That's the layout. Where the city is now is it is in discussions with Caltrans over what we call a relinquishment agreement, or we don't call it, they call it that. Caltrans wishes to relinquish its ownership of Highway 101 from the north city limits to the Highway 20 intersection. So if you want to call it the old part of downtown, would come back to the ownership of the city. They are obligated by law to leave it in good repair, you know, a legal term if there ever was one. And we are having a lot of discussions about them, about what that means and what the city feels Caltrans needs to do in order to for us to take that roadway back and take that responsibility. There again, there's a bunch of drainage issues that need to be dealt with. I really feel that the Sherwood Road interchange needs to have a redesign and a reconstruction, because I believe the north interchange and the Sherwood Road traffic are going to create a tremendous amount of congestion on that hard left turn if you're coming down Sherwood Road. And I just believe that that's a problem that is going to be caused by their project, and they should fix that problem. We also have a concern that there's going to be could be a high volume of traffic on city streets because of the construction. Caltrans been very coy about where the fill material is going to come from. They have a permit to get that material off of Red Hill, or Oil Well Hill, excuse me, on the north end of the valley just above Reynolds Highway. But the contractor has no obligation to use that source for the project. If they were to somehow, say, find a source of fill material on Highway 20 west of town, then obviously that material will have to come right through town. And again, there's a lot of water trucks, there's a lot of steel and concrete to be delivered to this project. There's something like 2,500 pylons that have to be hammered into the 120 feet down into the soil of the valley. It's a big project. And though the construction and those workers and stuff obviously will have a positive impact on some of the economies of the community, of the retail community, it stands to be have a lot of negative impact or expense to the city in terms of the maintenance of its roads and the arterials, whether it's commercial or valley or Bechtel. So those are the issues that we're looking at. I can't say that Caltrans is sidewalks, another big issue, the quality and the degradation of the sidewalks, handicap access, no sidewalks in front of the high school. Sidewalks would give it. We have a list of a dozen different things. Another one that comes to mind is the potential impact to the floodway or the floodplain in the valley. Caltrans has obviously done the studies to say that it's not going to impact the floodway. In our conversations with Cloverdale relative to their bypass, they said they actually, their biggest expense post-construction of the freeway was the problems associated with flooding in businesses and facilities that were caused by the freeway construction. So those are the sort of issues that we're trying to negotiate with Caltrans on now, and with only this relinquishment agreement which Caltrans wants to put in place as our only leverage to try and get some of these things done. You know, we asked that question ourselves, obviously, and they claim it is. They claim that is not an issue at this time. But the project actually is a federal highway project. It is federal highway funds administered by the state, and their federal gas tax it's an interstate highway, so it's a federally funded project. Funds being distributed by the state. Now, I have to add that bit of caution that those monies, though they have been clearly designated by the Mendocino County Council of Governments, it has been a number one priority project for as many years as I can count now. When the other people that have a lot more political clout than the North Coast come banging on the table of the CTC. There's always a concern that those monies could be redirected. So, I believe that still is a viable concern, but I think it's more about the monies being redirected than if there is money there or not. But both of them are viable questions and ones that we ask at pretty much every meeting that we have with Caltrans, and we get that answer. I don't know if you can call that a very direct or it's a vague answer, but that's the answer we get. And the answer is no. The hospital project is well west of the freeway project. It's on the other side of the railroad tracks. There could be a little bit of, maybe you could say that there would be some delivery of materials problems and, on an incident basis of getting equipment in or out or something, but I really don't. That has never been suggested that should be a concern. The city is a huge supporter of the hospital project. We did several things in the early stages of the hospital project. The city contributed a couple $100,000 doing earthquake studies to determine the appropriate location and construction process to build the hospital. Further, the city, when the Remco hydraulics lawsuit was settled, the city had a $4 million settlement from that project, which we may have settled for. It was actually finally settled the couple years I was not on the council, but the city pledged all that money to the hospital project. So it's in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 million that the city gave from that settlement to that project. So the city's a huge supporter of the hospital. I know that they have, they've struggled like we have in public projects to try and keep funding matched with escalating costs, and they are going through a process now of I think trying to contain some of their costs and come up with a design that might be more within their budget. But I don't believe that we really will have any interference between those two projects. They could go on simultaneously without any problem. The comment that I'd like to make to the community is really what Willits's core strength is, and that is the commitment of community members to service to the community. And I think we all have to find what shape that takes, whether it's participating in public access television or being a city council member, being a member of Rotary, participating in a church group, participating in youth activities. There are any number of there's no shortage of need in the community, and there really is an amazing core of people in this community that contribute volunteering their time and energy to the betterment of people and services and all. And I think that, that's what has got us through a lot of tough times. And I think trying to find commonality with your neighbors, where there may be a lot of diversity, a lot of differences, but I think in general, Willits finds commonality and common interest in upgrading and working with our community. And I believe as we go forward, that is going to be tested time and time again, and it's one test we always seem to pass. And so I would encourage everybody to find whatever rings their bell as a way of participation. There is no limit or no requirements to what that may be. And with that, I think this will continue to be a wonderful little town, and we'll all be happy to be supporters in it. We get upgrades on the water system. I think that we're in good shape. Obviously we have 2 reservoirs. What you see from the highway is what's called the Centennial Reservoir, which is an upper lake which feeds Morris Dam, which is what was built in the 20s. And that dam is, really designed to be emptied every year in the late summertime. The good thing about it is, as it was last spring, we were actually looking at some concerns about water levels. A good 2 or 3 inch rain will actually fill that reservoir. It's amazing how quick that will fill up. And it's really not too much of a concern this time of year, given that we still think we have a substantial amount of winter ahead of us. If you see that in April and May and it's not full, then it's time to be concerned. We also have an issue about putting in splashboards in that dam, that we can't do that until a certain particular date, which obviously the top of a dam stores a lot more water than the bottom of a dam. So putting those splashboards in to get another 18 inches or 24 inches or whatever it is, adds a tremendous amount of volume to that lake, and it's very necessary for us to see to it that by the culmination of the spring that we have that lake full. All of the reports I've been getting so far up through November, we did even all through this summer, we actually had late rains this spring, which worked well, but we never had to institute even a phase 1 water emergency. We had plenty of water all summer long. The department has worked hard on cleaning, repairing leaks and stuff to the system, and finding out where the water, trying to maximize the amount of water that we produce at the dam actually is able to come out of faucet in town. But that is a yearly concern. I would say that that's something to watch, but it is usually in April, May, and June that we really start to worry about the level of that lake.
Okay. The next time you show up, you got to bring your banjo.
Oh, I can do that.
Okay.
My name is Gilardin. I'm standing in front of a painting by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. This is part of an exhibition at the Willits Center for the Arts. The theme of the show is the end of industrial civilization. And that's actually a topic that was chosen by Ferlinghetti. He has been obsessed with understanding and limiting industrial civilization for a long time. He read Henry Miller's The Air-Conditioned Nightmare in the 40s, and that inspired him. Ferlinghetti came to one of my shows, which was toasting the end of capitalism. And he liked it, and the rest of the show here is mostly from that exhibition, the collages and photos. And he suggested then that we do a joint exhibition and change the title to End of Industrial Civilization. And I was actually intrigued by it because my own approach to industrial civilization was just economic. I mean, we're living under an economic system that is highly destructive, since we need to produce profit and growth. Not we, well, we are involved as the little slaves oiling the machines, but corporations need to produce a profit every quarter. And for a corporation, a redwood forest has no value until it's down on the ground and can get measured in board feet and sold. So I had looked at the economics of it pretty much exclusively, and now joining with his work, this painting, which is a comment on car culture. It's called Autogeddon, and it's a woman in a bloody dress lying in front of a car, being run over by a car. And the other painting that's here is called Homo sap, and that's cut back from Homo sapiens. Too stupid and too greedy to save himself as part of the graffiti on that painting. So the show is a participatory art event. We have invited people to fill in a survey, and it's been really amazing what people wrote to some very simple questions. First question, how far back do you go? How far back in time do you want to go for a more sustainable and happy and independent life? And we have everything in answers from the Stone Age to today. There are actually people feeling that Willits today is well on its way to a happy, sustainable and independent life. And I know a lot has happened here already that makes that true. For me, one of the most important parts of a critique of industrial civilization is the victory of the anti-genetic modified organism ordinance. That's a perfect example of the fact that we, if we are talking to each other, defining what we want, can put limits on industrial civilization. And there's more that people would like to put limits on that's borne out by the survey. And the survey will be here every time the gallery is open. I hope everybody who comes to the show looks around and answers the survey. People are trying to live without plastic bags, without gasoline cars. The electric toaster is still a necessity for many. But soft drinks are on their way out. Very few people fear they need Walmart to have a happy and independent life. It surprised me that all the serious industrial components like fast food, industrialized meat, soft drinks, that they had such a huge no vote already. Because I remember plastic bags were not an issue only a little while ago. And it's only since these reports came back about the plastic vortex in the oceans that people have become more aware of what plastic actually does. So people are saying that plastics overall are really something to be gotten rid of. So that surprised me. I didn't put computers on the list because I felt hardly anybody would be honestly able to say no. But computers are added on to the list. And then, electricity as a whole, I was surprised that people were writing that down. And then, I'm very sorry to say very few people want to live with their TVs. Yeah, it is actually a really a good job for you to show that TV doesn't have to be what it is now, that it can be community-based and feedback. And, people actually wrote in radio as something they don't want to get rid of. I think it can play a really huge role, as you can, in getting this discussion going, because all the change, all the setting of limits on industrial civilization will come from the local. There is no voluntary take back, with very, very, very few exceptions, that a corporation says, well, this product is toxic and I don't want to produce it anymore. as long as it brings a profit. They will keep producing it until we say no. And they're great examples. I mean, if this whole town were to boycott fast food, and fast food comes off like one of the things people really don't want here, that would make a difference. That as long as we have fast food, we have a certain type of agricultural production, because the fast food restaurants take between 80 and 95% of the products of the potato industry, the chicken industry, the beef industry. And even if we say we want to continue eating beef or potatoes, how could we not eat potatoes? We will have to eat the potatoes that are grown to the specifications of the fast food industry. Corporations show up a lot in what we want to live without. You know, the add-ons when people say, what is their personal choice? And what moved me a lot in the answers, that people refer to the emotional toll that industrial civilization exerts on them. So beyond saying they want to try and live without a toaster, they say things like they want to live without stress, or without fear, or hate. And that's very moving, because industrial civilization doesn't just determine the products that surround us. It sets the mood very much, the competitive, object-oriented way of life that's connected to industrial civilization. And that was really amazing. It was very well attended. The ballroom was full. We had organizations, and organizations were tabling. I walked around at the end and said, did you have enough contact? Did you have discussions at your tables? They all felt they had. There was a period where organizations gave just very briefly notice of their projects in localization or watershed restoration. And there was a lot of one-on-one conversation going on down here, because upstairs we had music, and so it spilled over into the gallery. People talked to each other, and people stayed till 11. It was quite amazing, yes, because people told me, Willits, people don't go to parties until 11, but they did. I have a radio program that's on 60 stations, and locally it's on KZYX. It's called TUC Radio. And the name is from Pilot's Handbook, Time of Useful Consciousness. That's the time from the beginning of oxygen deficiency to passing out. And I chose it in '92, and it becomes more and more true every year. It's a valuable time. It's a time of opportunity. And I'm doing environmental, anti-corporate, I do some Native Nations programming, I do some international programming. I like to pick up voices that don't get on NPR or don't even get on the other alternative radio shows like alternative radio. It's in its 16th year. It's produced now off-grid in a straw bale house that I built myself. Wow. The program is on every Tuesday, 4:30 till 5 p.m. on KZYX. Yes.
So that's about it for now. Things are happening in Willits, as they always are, and things are changing, as they always do. yet it's still the same familiar hometown we've all come to know and appreciate for what it is. We'd like to know what's happening with you, with your families, and the organizations which would not exist without your efforts and support. So give us a call at 459-2528 and let us know what's going on with you. Maybe you'll be a part of our next story. Keep tuned and join us next time to see what's happening this week in Willits.